My name is Claire Whitfield, and for 26 years my mother was a stranger who happened to share my last name.
I was 2 years old when she left me on my grandmother's porch in a laundry basket, along with a diaper bag and a note that read, "I can't do this right now. I'll come back for her." That was the last honest thing my mother Denise ever wrote to anyone in our family, because she never came back. Not for my 3rd birthday, not for my first day of kindergarten, not for the night I graduated high school as valedictorian while my grandmother Eleanor cried in the 3rd row, wearing her only good dress. Grandma Eleanor was 53 years old when I landed on her porch. She was supposed to be enjoying retirement, tending her rose garden, and visiting her sister in Charleston on the weekends. Instead, she went back to work as a school cafeteria supervisor because raising a toddler on a fixed income wasn't going to work. She never once made me feel like a burden, not when I had the flu for 2 weeks straight and she slept in a chair beside my bed. Not when I needed braces and she took a second job cleaning offices at night to pay for it. Not when I got into college and she sold her wedding ring, the one thing she had left of my grandfather, to help cover my first semester. "You're not her mistake," Grandma Eleanor used to tell me, tucking me in at night. "You're my miracle." I grew up believing that. I had to. Because the alternative, believing that my own mother looked at me and decided I wasn't worth staying for, was too heavy for a child to carry. So I built my whole identity around not needing her. I studied harder than anyone in my class. I worked 2 jobs through college. I started a small marketing consulting business in my apartment when I was 24, and by 26, I had 4 employees and a client list that included 2 Fortune 500 companies. By 28, which is how old I am now, I had a townhouse in a good neighborhood, a car I owned outright, and a savings account that made my accountant raise his eyebrows in a good way. None of it happened by accident. Every late night, every rejected pitch I turned into a better one, every risk I took, it was all fueled by a promise I made to myself at 12 years old, sitting on my grandmother's porch steps. I will never need anyone the way I needed my mother, and she wasn't there.
Grandma Eleanor is 79 now. Her hands shake a little when she pours tea, and she repeats stories sometimes. But her mind is sharp, and her heart is exactly the same as it was when I was 2 years old on that porch. She still lives in the same house, the one I grew up in, the one I've been quietly renovating over the past 2 years. New roof, new plumbing, a walk-in shower so she doesn't have to climb over a tub edge anymore. I do it without telling her the real cost, because she'd refuse the help out of pride if she knew. I hadn't heard my mother's voice in almost 15 years. The last time was a 5-minute phone call when I was 13, where she asked for gas money and hung up when I said I didn't have any. After that, nothing. No calls, no letters, not even a message on the social media accounts I eventually made under a fake name, specifically so she couldn't find me if she ever looked. So when my phone rang on a Tuesday afternoon in March and I saw a Georgia area code I didn't recognize, I almost didn't answer. I wish I hadn't. "Claire, baby, is that you? It's your mom." I sat there in my office, staring at the framed photo on my desk. Me and Grandma Eleanor at my college graduation, her hand gripping mine so tight it left a mark. And I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "How did you get this number?" I asked. "I found you on Facebook. Well, your business page. You look just like me. You know that? People always said you'd have my eyes." She laughed, a sound I hadn't heard since I was a toddler, and it made my skin crawl. "I've been thinking about you so much lately. I know I made mistakes. I was young, I was struggling. I made choices I regret every single day. But I'm better now. I'm sober 3 years. I go to church. I want to know my daughter. Is that so wrong?" I should have hung up. Every instinct in my body told me to hang up, but there was a small, foolish part of me, the part that was still that 2-year-old on the porch that wanted, just once, to hear her say she was sorry and mean it.
"What do you want, Denise?" I asked, refusing to call her Mom.
There was a pause. Then her voice shifted, just slightly, into something softer and more careful. "I just want to see you. I want to meet the woman you've become. I heard you have a successful business. I'm so proud of you, baby. I always knew you'd turn out amazing."
I should have known then. Proud of me. She was proud of a daughter she hadn't spoken to in 15 years, who she'd left in a laundry basket, who she only found because of a business page with presumably a website listing annual revenue in the About section. But grief and hope are strange companions. I told her she could come visit. I told myself it was for closure. I told myself I could handle whatever she brought with her. I had no idea what I was about to let into my life. Denise showed up 11 days later, driving a rental car she claimed was her own, wearing a designer handbag that cost more than my grandmother's monthly retirement check, and carrying exactly one small suitcase.
"Just for a few days," she said when I picked her up from the hotel she'd insisted on staying at. A hotel I ended up paying for because she forgot her card at check-in, and the front desk called me in a panic when she listed my business as the guarantor without asking.
That should have been warning number 1. I ignored it because she cried when she saw me, wrapping her arms around me in the lobby, saying my name over and over like I was something she'd lost and finally found. Some traitorous part of my chest ached at the contact. 26 years old, and some little girl part of me still wanted a mother's hug to feel like safety instead of a performance.
Denise was, I'll admit, charming in the way certain people are charming. The kind of charm that works like a spotlight, warm and flattering as long as it's pointed at you, and freezing the moment it moves elsewhere. Over dinner that first night, she asked about my business with genuine-sounding curiosity, complimented my sharp mind, told me I clearly got my drive from her side of the family. She never once asked about Grandma Eleanor. I brought it up myself. Grandma raised me, you know. Sacrificed everything. Denise's smile flickered, just for a second. Your grandmother did what she had to do. I was going through a hard time. People don't understand how hard it was for me. She sold her wedding ring to pay for my college, I said. Well, Denise said, waving a hand, already reaching for the dessert menu. I'm sure she got something out of it too. People like feeling needed. I remember staring at her, waiting for the punchline, for some sign she understood what she'd just said. There wasn't one. By the end of the week, a few days had become just until I get back on my feet. Denise had somehow ended up staying in my guest room. She'd somehow needed to borrow my car twice, both times returning it with an empty gas tank and a story about how expensive gas was these days, how hard it was to make ends meet, how she hated asking, but she just needed a little help right now. I gave her $300 that first week, then $500 the next for a medical bill she never showed documentation for. Each time, she thanked me with tears in her eyes, told me how blessed she was to have a daughter as generous as me, how different things would have been if she'd raised me herself, how much like her I turned out despite everything. I started noticing a pattern in her sentences. Nearly everything circled back to how much I was like her. My ambition, my sharp instincts, my work ethic, as if 26 years of my grandmother's sacrifice were just a footnote, and Denise's absent DNA was the real engine behind everything I'd built. It was subtle. It was constant. And it was working on me more than I wanted to admit, because some desperate part of me wanted so badly to belong to somebody's story of success instead of somebody's story of abandonment. 3 weeks in, Denise brought up my grandmother directly for the first time. How's your grandmother doing, health-wise? She asked one evening, swirling wine I'd bought at her request. She's getting up there in age. Does she have, I don't know, a will? Insurance? I just worry about her is all. Family should take care of these things together.
I felt my stomach drop. Why are you asking me that? Denise's face rearranged itself instantly into wounded innocence.
Claire, I'm just concerned. She's my mother too, you know. I have a right to know what happens to her.
You haven't spoken to her in 26 years.
That's not my fault.
Denise snapped, the warmth vanishing so fast it startled me.
She never reached out either. Everyone acts like I'm the villain, but nobody made an effort to include me. I was young and struggling, and everyone just wrote me off.
I sat there in silence, watching a woman I barely knew rewrite an entire history of abandonment into a story where she was the victim, and Grandma Eleanor, the woman who gave up her retirement, her rings, her sleep, her body's strength to raise a child that wasn't legally required of her, was somehow the one who'd failed to reach out. I should have asked her to leave that night. I didn't, because 2 days later, she suggested something that, in hindsight, was the first real crack in the mask. I think we should go visit your grandmother together, Denise said. As a family. I think it's time to reconnect. Something about the way she said reconnect, flat, rehearsed, businesslike, made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I should have said no. Every rational part of my brain screamed that this was a terrible idea. But Grandma Eleanor had mentioned, gently, over the phone, that she'd like to see Denise one time, just to make peace with things before I'm too old to care. My grandmother, even after everything, wanted closure more than she wanted vengeance. That's the kind of woman she is. So I drove Denise the 2 hours to my grandmother's house, the house I'd been quietly renovating, the house with a fresh roof and new plumbing that Denise complimented the second we pulled into the driveway. "This place looks great," she said, eyes scanning the new siding, the repaved walkway. "Did Mom finally get some money, or—" "I paid for it," I said flatly. "All of it." Denise's expression did something complicated. Surprise, then something colder underneath the surprise. Calculation, before it smoothed back into warmth. "That's so generous of you, baby. You really are a good daughter." The word daughter landed strangely in that sentence, considering who she meant it about, and I didn't correct her. Grandma Eleanor opened the door before we even reached it, moving slower than she used to, leaning slightly on her cane, but her eyes were sharp and steady on her estranged daughter for the first time in 2 decades. "Denise," she said quietly. "Mom." Denise's voice cracked with what sounded like real emotion, and for one moment, watching them look at each other, I let myself hope this could actually be some kind of healing. I let myself believe, for exactly one afternoon, that people could change. The visit started well enough. Denise complimented the house, the garden, the fresh coat of paint on the porch railing, the same porch where she'd left me 26 years earlier, though nobody said that part out loud. She hugged Grandma Eleanor twice, cried once, apologized in vague, sweeping terms that never quite named a specific wrong. My grandmother, gracious as ever, accepted the apology with the quiet dignity of a woman who'd spent 2 decades choosing forgiveness over bitterness. Not because Denise deserved it, but because carrying that much anger wasn't a life Eleanor wanted to live. Then Denise made a mistake. She thought my grandmother's kindness meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant opportunity. "Mom," Denise said over coffee, her voice suddenly business casual. "I've been thinking, now that we're reconnecting, I think it makes sense to talk about the future. Practically, I mean. You're not getting any younger, and I want to make sure things are handled the right way. For the family." Grandma Eleanor set down her coffee cup very slowly. "What things, Denise?" "The house. Your accounts. I just think it would be smart to update your will, make sure everything's organized. I could help you with that. I actually know a lawyer who handles estate planning.
very reasonable rates.
The room went silent. I watched my grandmother's face, watched 26 years of carefully guarded hope curdle into something exhausted and painfully familiar.
I already have a will, sweetheart, Grandma Eleanor said, her voice steady despite the sudden tightness around her eyes. It's been in place for 12 years. Claire helped me.
Denise's smile flickered, just barely, but I caught it. That same flicker from the restaurant, the one that showed underneath the performance for half a second before she smoothed it away.
Well, that's great, Denise said, too brightly. Things change, though. Circumstances change. I just don't want to be left out of important family decisions, that's all. I am your daughter.
You made your choices 26 years ago, Grandma Eleanor said, quietly but without hesitation. I made mine. Claire made hers every single day for 26 years, showing up when you didn't.
Denise's jaw tightened. For the first time since she'd shown up on my doorstep, I saw the mask slip completely, just for a moment, revealing something hard and resentful underneath. I didn't fly here to be lectured, she said.
You drove, I said quietly.
In a rental car that I'm pretty sure you can't actually afford.
The look Denise gave me in that moment told me everything I needed to know. And everything I'd been too hopeful, too hungry for a mother to admit to myself for the past month. The drive back from my grandmother's house was silent except for the radio, which Denise kept turning up whenever the conversation threatened to start again.
I dropped her off at my townhouse and told her, calmly, that I needed some space to think.
That night I couldn't sleep. Something about the estate planning comment kept circling my brain like a mosquito I couldn't swat away. Denise had never once in an entire month asked about my grandmother's health with any real concern. No questions about her medications, her doctor visits, her mobility. But the second the conversation touched money, she'd had a lawyer ready to go. Around 2 a.m., I did something I'm not proud of. I went into the guest room while Denise was asleep on the pull-out couch downstairs, and I looked through the folder she kept in her suitcase. The one she always kept zipped, tucked under her clothes. The one she'd gotten oddly protective over when I'd offered to help her unpack weeks earlier. Inside, I found a stack of papers that changed everything. There were printouts of my grandmother's public property records, the deed to the house, its estimated value, tax assessments going back 3 years. There was a handwritten list titled Assets, with rough estimates next to items like house, approx $240K. Savings, unknown, ask Claire. And, most damning of all, my own business name with a dollar figure beside it that was disturbingly close to my actual annual revenue. Information that was not publicly available anywhere. There was also a printed email exchange between Denise and a man named Rick, someone I didn't recognize, dated 2 months before she first called me. The subject line read, "Reconnecting with the kid, good idea?" Denise's message beneath it read, in part, that she'd heard through an old coworker that her daughter had done well for herself, that her mother was getting older and probably has a decent nest egg, and that it wouldn't hurt to reach out now before it's too late to get anything out of it. I sat on that guest room floor at 2 in the morning, holding evidence that my mother hadn't come back because she loved me, or because she was sober and remorseful and wanted a relationship. She'd come back because someone told her I was successful, because she'd done the math on my grandmother's age and assets, and because she saw both of us as an investment she'd abandoned 26 years too early and was now trying to collect returns on. The next morning, I didn't say anything. I needed proof that would hold up not just to Denise, but to my grandmother, who I knew would want to believe the best about her daughter until the evidence was undeniable. So I did what I do best. I planned. I reached out quietly to an estate attorney, a real one, and had her walk me through exactly what protections my grandmother already had in place and what additional protections we could add. I contacted the hotel Denise had stayed at initially and confirmed,
discreetly that the card on file for incidentals, the one that had triggered the panic call, actually belonged to someone named Rick Palmer, not Denise. A little more digging, using nothing but public records and an old skill from my marketing days of finding out who exactly a company's decision makers were, turned up that Rick Palmer had 2 prior fraud-adjacent civil complaints filed against him in another state, both related to elder financial exploitation schemes. My mother wasn't just chasing money on her own. She'd brought help. I called my grandmother that afternoon, my hands shaking as I dialed. "Grandma," I said, "I need to show you something, and I need you to be sitting down when you see it." We planned it carefully, my grandmother, her longtime attorney, and I. Instead of confronting Denise privately where she could twist the story, backtrack, and manipulate her way out of it the way she'd clearly done countless times before, we invited her to what she believed was a family dinner at my grandmother's house to discuss the will, the very meeting she'd been angling for since the day she pushed her way back into my life. Denise arrived in a new outfit, hair freshly done, practically glowing with anticipation. She hugged my grandmother, complimented the pot roast, and settled into her chair at the head of the table like she'd never been anywhere else her entire life. "So," she said, once the plates were mostly empty, "I know this might feel sudden, but I really think it's time we talk about the future. As a family." "We agree," my grandmother's attorney said calmly, sliding a folder across the table. "That's exactly why we're here." Denise's face lit up. Actual, unguarded joy, the kind of expression I'd never once seen directed at me with sincerity in the entire month she'd been in my life. She reached for the folder eagerly. Inside wasn't a revised will granting her a share of the estate. It was a printed copy of the assets list from her own suitcase. Her handwriting, unmistakable. Beside it, a printout of the email to Rick Palmer. Beside that, a background summary of Rick Palmer's prior fraud allegations and a hotel receipt showing his card had paid for her room. The color drained from Denise's face so fast, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Where did you—" "This is private. You had no right to go through my things." "You had no right to plan how to strip my grandmother's estate before you'd even said hello to her in 26 years, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "You had no right to research my business revenue before you ever bothered learning my favorite color, my job title, whether I was even alive some years for all you knew. Claire, I can explain. You told a man named Rick that reconnecting with the kid might be worth something," I continued, pulling the printed email from the folder and reading it aloud, watching her flinch at every word in her own handwriting reflected back at her. "You called me the kid, Denise. Not your daughter. The kid. Like I was a stock tip." My grandmother, who had remained silent through all of this, finally spoke, her voice quiet but absolutely unshakable. "I forgave you for leaving her on my porch, Denise. I never forgave you, not fully, but I made peace with it, because I told myself people can be young and scared and make terrible choices, but this," she tapped the folder with one finger, "this wasn't a scared 22-year-old making a desperate mistake. This was a calculated plan by a grown woman who saw her own daughter's success and her own mother's mortality as a business opportunity." "That's not... I do love her. I love you both. You just needed money," I finished for her. "And you thought guilt and a few tears would get it for you. It almost worked, Denise. I want you to know that. It almost worked because some pathetic part of me still wanted a mother so badly that I was willing to ignore every red flag you waved directly in my face." Denise's tears started then, but they looked different than they had a month earlier. Less performance, more panic. The tears of someone watching a plan collapse rather than someone genuinely grieving what she'd lost. She tried a few more angles,
that we were misunderstanding, that Rick was just an old friend helping her research family law questions, that the asset list was for her own peace of mind. But the attorney calmly laid out, point by point, exactly how each excuse contradicted the documented evidence in front of her. Finally, Denise stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Fine," she snapped, all pretense gone, her voice hardening into something cold I recognized instantly. The same voice from the car ride home from our first visit. "You want to act like I'm some criminal? Fine. I hope that money makes you both happy since it clearly matters more than family." "It was never about the money for us," my grandmother said quietly. "It was about you finally choosing your daughter over yourself. One time in 26 years. You had that chance sitting at this table tonight, and you still chose the money." Denise left without another word, slamming the front door hard enough to rattle the new windows I'd installed 2 months earlier. I never heard from her again. Not a call, not a text, not even an angry email. She simply vanished back into whatever life she built with Rick Palmer, presumably to find another family with an aging relative and a successful, guilt-vulnerable adult child to exploit. It's been 8 months since that dinner. My grandmother's estate is airtight now, protected by trusts and legal safeguards her attorney set up specifically to prevent exactly this kind of exploitation from happening again, whether from Denise or anyone else. My grandmother sleeps easier, she tells me, now that the uncertainty is gone. Now that she doesn't have to wonder anymore whether her own daughter loves her or simply sees her as an asset with the expiration date. I won't pretend the whole experience didn't leave a mark. For years I told myself I didn't need my mother, that I built an entire life and identity specifically not needing her. But some quiet corner of my heart had apparently kept a door cracked open the whole time, waiting, hoping that if she ever came back, it would be because she genuinely wanted to know me. Not because a business page listed my revenue, not because a friend mentioned my grandmother's property value, not because two strangers in another state sat down and calculated what reconnecting might be worth. That door is closed now. Not out of bitterness, though I won't pretend there isn't some of that too, but out of clarity. I finally understand something my grandmother tried gently to teach me my entire childhood, something I was too young and too hopeful to fully absorb until now. Love that shows up only when it's convenient, only when there's something to gain, was never love in the first place. It was strategy, wearing love's clothing. Real love looks like a 53-year-old woman opening her door to a toddler in a laundry basket and never once making that child feel like an inconvenience. Real love looked like selling a wedding ring to pay for a college semester without ever mentioning the sacrifice unless directly asked. Real love looked like a phone call every single Sunday for 26 years, rain or shine, good mood or bad, just to say, "I'm thinking about you, and I'm proud of you." Real love never once, in 26 years, asked me what my business was worth. My grandmother turned 80 last month. We threw a small party, just the two of us, a cake from her favorite bakery, and an afternoon on the porch where this whole story technically began. I brought her a gift that took months to arrange. A full deed transfer, moving the house officially into a protected family trust in her name, with clear, ironclad instructions ensuring it stays exactly where it belongs. With the woman who earned every square foot of it through 26 years of showing up. "You didn't have to do all this," she said, holding the paperwork with hands that trembled slightly more than they used to. "Neither did you," I said, 26 years ago. "But you did anyway." She reached over and took my hand, the same way she had on my graduation day, gripping it tight enough to leave a mark. And for the first time since Denise walked back into my life and then walked back out of it, I felt something settle completely in my chest. Not anger, not grief, just certainty. I know exactly who my family is.
It was never a woman who left me on a porch and came back 26 years later doing math on my success. It was always the woman who opened the door.